Bob Unanue is the president and CEO of Goya Foods, the largest Hispanic-owned food company in the United States. In 2020, he was appointed as a commissioner to the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative, where he served as an advisor to President Trump in Hispanic economic prosperity. Bob is also the founder of Goya Cares, a multi-million-dollar initiative dedicated to combating human trafficking. He took on the role of executive producer for the acclaimed film Sound of Freedom, which has garnered international attention. And now he's the best-selling author with his new book, Blessed Donald Trump and the Spiritual War, where he shares his insights and experiences on business, faith, and policy. This is Bob Unanue's Blueprint. Well, Bob, how are you? Good to be here at Goya headquarters.
Great. It's so great to be with such a dynamic person as yourself. The young people are the future of this country. Not that you're too young, but you're such a dynamic person with such drive, faith, and courage that is so needed in this country.
You called me both very young and old in the same sentence, so I appreciate that.
I don't know
someone who feels like I'm not quite there yet, quite old enough, but not too young. I appreciate your advice. Here's the thing, Bob. We get to chat on the phone quite a bit of time. What I think sometimes is a 5 to 10 minute conversation usually always ends up as almost an hour-long conversation of nothing but wisdom and great lessons that you give me. So I thought, let's just sit down and put it all on record so that the million of other young Hispanics that are looking for mentorship get to have some of those nuggets of wisdom from you.
That's great. Sounds great. I'm all ears.
So we're here at Goya headquarters here in Texas. We did the drive-through and just looking at all the giant machines and the impact that your company has in manufacturing, distribution, like being the fastest and growing and really the largest Hispanic-owned business in the country. Bob, you being the CEO, what does your day even look like? Can you wrap your mind around how big your company is? I'm sure you can, obviously, but what does that day-to-day look like?
Well, my day-to-day has changed. When I was starting out the company, and I came in as a very young kid, and then out of college, I've worked in every department. I can't be an undercover boss. I worked in many areas, purchasing for many years, where you're like tied, you're so essential to everyday business. But now as CEO, I'm still working 24/7. And at Goya, we say we only work a half a day, at least 12 hours. But my day is different. It's a lot of stress because you're responsible for the direction, the success. But there's so many great people at Goya that I don't have to get involved in the particular each individual function of the company, which is we have our own advertising agency, we have our own engineers, manufacturing, distribution. It's so diverse of a company, our own print shops and things like that. But there comes a point where all the talents that you need to run a company on a day-to-day basis are beyond the scope of one person. It takes many, many people. So my day is, and again, we have companies all over this country, all over the Caribbean and in Europe. My function is to oversee that and also to be almost like a dad, if you will, to our family. I'm one of at 70 years old, I've been in the company for full-time for 48 years. And so it's the personal contact, because the companies are run, people think companies are buildings or facilities. It's people. So you have to be a family member for our people, and our people come from all walks of life, all countries from around the world. Every Latino country is in our company, and the United States is the second largest Latino country in the world. So this diversity is part of this great family. And when you come as an immigrant from another country, you hang on to your roots. And that's how Goya has grown. Goya has grown by knowing, being authentic, knowing the roots of the individual people coming into this country through food, through traditions and things like that. And so actually, one of our gentlemen that used to run our Florida operation said, as Latinos, we're united by language, we're separated by the bean. Everybody has their own favorite food. But it just shows the diversity of the people working here, the diversities of opinion, all the diversities of that we have here. But what I believe unites us, not only this company, but this country and the Latino community are the values, God, family, work, and having a purpose, having a reason for getting up every day. If you don't have that, why educate yourself? Why work so hard? And there's a satisfaction. There's a satisfaction in this family, the Goya family, of being a successful company, working together and making a difference in this community.
I love that. So I want to strip that back just a little bit, because Hispanics are starting businesses 3 times faster than the general population. We contribute up to, I think, $3 trillion in GDP every year. We're the 5th largest. If we were a standalone economy, we'd be the 5th largest GDP in the world. Hispanics truly are the economic backbone to this country. And something that I think a lot of people might resonate with you, business leaders might resonate with you, is the fact that you said that you've started and you've worked in every department within Goya. We know that Hispanics, when they first start their business, you are the CEO, but you're also the CFO, and you're also the administrator. You're everything. You're keeping the books, you're running the calls, you're running your own agenda. What advice would you give to someone that is trying to manage a business that wants to scale and to grow? Because oftentimes I think the problem with young business leaders is the rapid want and need to grow can sometimes actually stall that growth. You that have been behind such a growth with Goya, what are some of those tips of advice that you might give to someone that is looking to have a bigger impact with their business?
Well, I started working very young. It's a blessing to have work and to have a purpose, to work hard, but to work smart too. And after all these years in the business, I was 10 years in Puerto Rico, where we have a big factory there. We make our own cans, cut steel, plastic bottles, we manufacture, we distribute. And having the knowledge, my dad used to say, if you have knowledge, you have freedom. You have freedom to go anywhere. But you have to have the knowledge of the business. In a way, you have to become indispensable, so that you're not just needed, but you're providing your resource and are part of the success. Because and nobody can tell you a story, because I've known every department here, and if I ask a question on something, nobody can sell me a story that, well, thank you, but my experience is this, that, and the other thing. And having that experience is essential. But working hard, working smart, and we have executives in our company that came along, and they took on responsibility. A lot of people say, I don't want to do that, but this one gentleman came in as a clerk with a history degree, but he and a very smart guy. He's our executive vice president, our senior vice president, Joseph Perez. He helps run our Spanish operation, our U.S. operations. He's one of the pillars of the company. But he always took on things that other people didn't want to take on. So, have the initiative to take on things that are outside of your comfort zone, and have the knowledge. As a history major, he knows the history of many of the Latino communities around the world, of food, of things like that, And you know, I never liked history until I started becoming historic myself. But Joe, he's very well read, educated, and he knows the history. So the food business isn't just, you know, having a product and hoping someone will buy it. It's knowing, being authentic, knowing the consumer and what the consumer wants, because the nuances of cuisines among the different countries, Peru, Colombia, you know, Central America, South America. We have cookbooks with all these different, Spain, Mexico, Central South America, fusion. Knowing those differences and being having that knowledge has made us the #1 Hispanic food company in the United States, because nobody can fool us. And we know,
You know your history.
we know the history, know the consumer.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies to a person. If you have that knowledge and you have the spirit and the initiative to learn about everything, don't fear, you know, finding about anything. You're going to stand out. You're going to be successful always, because there's always enough people. It's kind of what's happening to this country. There's a lot of people with their hands out, but not enough people with their, you know, giving. And, you know, we want to work and wake up every day with purpose, and that's going to make the difference now and going forward.
So you as a CEO, what you're saying is are you looking into those employees that oftentimes, yes, do their job description well, but are also able to take on loads that maybe didn't belong to them, and that's where leadership is developed, correct?
That's right. And those people like cream that rises to the top, they become obvious that, hey, these are people who, and not that they're, you know, filling you full of nonsense, but, you know, they come forward with smart ideas. And the other thing is, you know, we have so many different specialties in this company, from manufacturing to advertising to distribution and all that. I never want to pigeonhole anybody into one particular thing. Hey, you're part of this company, you're part of the overall program, you're part of the overall success. So why not learn about marketing? Why not learn about distribution, manufacturing? And that way, you know, you're always contributing to the success of the company.
Yeah. You, in your book, which we'll talk about the mission behind it, because I think it's an incredible mission, you talk about the starting of Goya. It's very much clear that it is a family-driven company. Today, you have two of your sons. One oversees the Spain operation, one oversees here in Texas. When you look at how Hispanics are starting businesses at a faster rate than any other racial group, and you traveled the country visiting these small businesses, it's oftentimes pretty clear that they bring in the family to start that business. You know, you have it's a family operation. Dealing with family can sometimes be a little tough, especially with business. How have you managed to be able to work this long in a company this big with your family? Is it something that how do you balance that?
Yeah, well, I'm not alone. I'm third generation. My grandfather started it, 4 sons. They're no longer here. 18 of us. Right now, 4 of us in this generation are in the business. You know, because we want to, because we've grown up in it, we live in it. Other people have gone in different directions. The 4th generation, which is about 62 people, I actually have 4 sons in the business out of 6 children, and others. There's other family members with their children in it too. But the company is spread out through 26 different organizations throughout the United States, Caribbean, and Europe. And so if you're interested, there's work for everybody. But you have to work hard, you have to work smart, you have to be dedicated and hold up you know, an image and an example of work and dedication and honesty and all that. And so, interestingly enough, there's room for a lot more. But this organization is run around in many locations by people who are not family. So, and everybody feels as if they're part of a family, a success, and we're just one of the other families, and that make up, even though the ownership is there, that make up the
La Gran
Goya
Familia
family,
Goya.
La Gran Familia Goya.
Question though, so when you, for instance, here in Houston, when you're walking into the office, and your son here, is it CEO or is it dad, and vice versa? Is it son or is it his title? How do you manage that?
Well, with everybody, with everybody that works here, it's the first name. It's Luz, it's Maite, it's Tony. I have two sons here. Bobby is in distribution. It's Avelio. It's not title. In fact, I've never really used the titles. It's kind of come about that way. But no, it's and with everybody. My door is always open, although it's kind of cracked closed right now. But it's always open. Anybody comes in here, and like I said, I can't be an undercover boss. I love interacting.
Because everyone knows you.
Interacting with people, and I've done most of the jobs, and I help troubleshoot sometimes when there's issues, but
just like the ladder situation we were talking about earlier. Today. It's incredible to see how you're very active CEO and you're still very involved. Bob, I was born and raised in little small Lubbock, Texas, but I spent a good portion of my life in Mexico while my mom finished school out there. So my first language was Spanish. And so when I started grade school in the United States, I didn't speak any English. And my mom and dad decided to put me in full-on English speaking classes because they thought that I'd pick up, and they were correct, that I'd pick up English pretty quickly. But as you know, in first grade is when you start reading. And I was a Spanish-speaking kid who had no idea what was going on. I remember back in the day, they'd pass out the books, and each kid would take a turn reading the lines, and I didn't know how to read English. So I would just make up something that the kid before me did, and I thought we were just making up this story along the lines, going with the pictures. Now I know I was getting so many weird looks from the kids around me because this kid doesn't know what he's doing. And I remember my first grade teacher pulled me aside, and she said, because she saw that I was having a little bit of a tough time with some of the students there not speaking English, and she said, Abraham, you might not know this, but you have a superpower. You're like Superman, those cartoons of Superman. Your superpower is that you can speak two different languages, English and Spanish. The only problem is that we need to strengthen your English superpower. So all these kids, when they make fun of you or when they might give you a weird look when you say something, it's because they're jealous of your superpower that you have. So we just have to strengthen that superpower. I blame her for my incredibly high sense of confidence in some of the situations that I get put in. But that first grade Abraham, who knew English, fell in love with learning English to the point where I was in 5th grade. I won the Parsons Elementary School Spelling Bee. So I went from not knowing anything to winning the spelling bee in 5th grade. I say that because one of the stories that resonated so well with me in your book was when you talk about how your father decided to pick up and move to Spain because of a big policy issue that happened in America. And you talk about how you were the age of, 10, 13? How old were you when you moved?
Well, actually, I was about, at that time, about 18.
18, yeah, a little older. 18, knew no Spanish, and you were thrown into a culture so different, but you adapted so quickly. And as I've traveled across the country, Bob, the average age of Hispanics in America is 29 years old, meaning we're the youngest racial demographic in the country. And if you're lucky like me, you were born and raised and celebrated by speaking Spanish. But there's a lot of parts in this country that speaking Spanish was not so celebrated. So I met a lot of young Hispanics my age would tell me, Abraham, I wasn't allowed to speak Spanish because it was looked down upon. So now I'm struggling and I'm working to fall in love with a language that was taken from me. What do you say to those Hispanics who are assimilating to American culture, great, but still want to touch base with their roots with that Spanish language and are having a little bit of difficulty with that?
Yeah, as immigrants, there's three things we hang on to: language, music, and food. And it's very important, the language. When I did go to Spain, I had 3 years of high school Spanish, which was nothing. It was I was not proficient at all. Was working in Seville. I helped my dad build a factory for olives and olive oil. I went to the University of Seville. We had tutors, and it was a bombardment 24/7. But there were two options in Seville. You could either speak Spanish or you could speak Spanish. And those were the two options. And I ended up speaking Spanish and becoming more proficient at it. My brother, younger brother at the time, was in first grade. He learned to read and write in Spanish. Similarly, when we went back to the U.S., he was in second or third grade, and he started reading English, not having learned how to read and write in English, in Spanish. So read would be read, so a lot of words in Spanish and in English are spelt differently, sound the same. To sure, is that S-U-R-E, is it H-O-O-R-E? But in Spanish, if you're speaking slow enough, you're spelling it. But, the United States is the second largest Latino country in the world, with the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. And when you look at Mexico, Central America, South America, the Spanish language dominates the hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So, if you have, back to the knowledge thing, if you have a knowledge like a superpower mm-hmm. of multiple languages, you're needed. You have a talent that no one else does. And if basically up to 8 years old, you can also have the right accent, la lengua. But since I had learned it at a later age, my accent is, I can tell, they can spot me a mile away. Although I have a dominance of the Spanish language. It's such an asset to be bilingual. And anybody that makes it successfully has a multiple language, like the Pope, people like that. So it's, and we will be, the Latinos will be the biggest group, they say by 2050, probably much sooner. But so we have the opportunity and the responsibility to lead our country closer to God, and also to enhance our language and join in. I think there's a lot of power mm-hmm. if we were to be like a European Union, and the countries that are like-minded and God-fearing. We need, I believe, as a country, not to be so isolated, but to join forces. And we'll be joining forces with countries that are Spanish dominant. And so I think it's probably one of the largest languages spoken on the planet. The Chinese, there's many Chinese, etc. But so we have that advantage.
Do you feel that people sometimes need to travel to Spain, Latin America, to really understand the Hispanic culture, or do you think that America has been so exposed to the Hispanic culture to where now people see it almost in their everyday life?
Yeah, well, we have factories in the Dominican Republic. We have factories in Puerto Rico, in Spain, and other places. We live, I grew up my mom was Irish, poor growing up. My father was the son of the man, my grandfather who started Goya Foods, left Spain at 17 years old on a steamship, went to Puerto Rico. You know, traveling the world, living, let's say, for example, in Bergen County, New Jersey. It's one of the richest counties in the country. And we become used to that, or we become used to the fact that the United States is the freest country in the world. We don't know what it is not to be free, not to have freedom of speech, freedom to worship. And yet you see countries like Cuba where those freedoms were taken away, Venezuela, now Colombia, and other countries where that freedom is going away. And we are the last bastion of that freedom. But what's happening in this country right now, we're at risk of losing that freedom. And people coming to this country left countries where freedom was taken away, and they saw it coming. They're sounding an alarm. It's coming here. So if we stay isolated in this country and don't travel, don't see what's happening in Dominican Republic, which they have a very strong border with Haiti. Haiti is an absolute disaster. It's run by the gangs, and although they do let people in to pick the crops, the Dominican Republic is losing a lot of the agriculture to tourism. You know, as the country grows in wealth of tourism and things like that, agriculture disappears. So we cannot be, it's ignorance to not understand how the rest of the world works. Look at the young people today. If you were born after 9/11, you think Osama bin Laden's a great guy because you haven't lived during that thing. You think Che Guevara was a really great guy who would murder children in front of their parents because the mother would say, "Hey, I don't want my child to suffer under this. You have him jailed for political reasons. Oh, your son's not is suffering. Bring him here and shoot their child right in front of the mother." This is the harsh reality. The trafficking that's taking place in this country. The United States is the biggest consumer of human trafficking. The Latinos are the biggest target and victim. Women are the biggest victim. 70% of all people trafficked are women. And so this is happening but around this country. But if we're in a state or a city or county that is, you know, that's not a reality. So we need to even travel around this country. We need to travel around the world to see what it means to lose our freedom, what it means to have chaos and a lack of civility, safety on our streets. But we're seeing it right now. I was with Bukele, President Bukele of El Salvador, who's jailed 15,000 MS-13 kids. But there's a lot have come in, or Tren Agua from Venezuela, that are harming our children, killing people, stealing, creating chaos in this country. It's going to be a rude awakening if not seeing this coming and voting for the handouts, voting for people who have the best song and dance versus voting for someone like Donald Trump who's been here before. It's made the country prosperous and safe. You know, we're on the verge of World War III. China rattling, saber rattling, Iran, all these countries, Russia, and we're here clueless as to what freedom means. I see a veteran and I say, thank you for our freedom. Thank you for our service, but for our freedom, because they risk their lives. And I tell you what, another person risking their life every day is President Donald J. Trump, who almost took a bullet twice. But he's courageous. He loves his country. there's too much hate in this country, but he loves this country. People may hate him, some of them. I love the guy because I think he's going to save this country from communism, which is the absence of God, the absence of security, the absence of freedom. And it's coming our way at a theater near you, unless we all wake up.
So let's talk about that, about your support for President Trump. Today, as we're sitting here, we're 40 days from Election Day.
Right.
We hear a lot about this idea that freedom and democracy and liberty and independence and yeah, it's on the line in the ballot box. I agree with that. You decided your very first book to title Blessed Donald J. Trump and the Spiritual War. But I want to talk about your first interaction with President Trump, or really the first public interaction with President Trump. Walk me through, and on our first time that we ever met was the summer of July in 2020. Walk me through the build-up to the launch of the Hispanic Prosperity Commission. I know that day you announced that you were donating millions of pounds of food for the American people. I mean, we had the perfect storm at that time. We had heavily chaotic presidential election, much like we are having today, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. And my friends that have been in war, they say that in the middle of combat, you can tell a person's character and leadership. And that day, in the middle of race war around the country, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a chaotic election, stood a leader and said, we were blessed to have Donald J. Trump. What was going through your mind that day?
Well, first of all, the word blessed came on my lips from the Holy Spirit. It was God sent.
Because you didn't have a pre-speech prepared, right? Is what you said?
No, it was off the cuff like we're doing now, and but the Holy Spirit put the word blessed on my lips, and I actually stopped my little speech and went backwards and said, at the same time, we're blessed to have a president like President Trump, who's a builder, like my grandfather. And I had been with the Obamas and worked with them with a thing called My Plate, which is taking the pyramid of nutritional pyramid and turning it into a plate of portion control with the 4 food groups. And I had poured words of praise on President Obama at the time. And Michelle Obama, who I was working with, that was well accepted. You know, it's a double standard. You say you're blessed because of President Trump, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. Cancel culture, we're boycotted, we're attacked. The thousands of people who work with Goya around the world were under attack for me saying blessed. But before that, to backtrack a little bit, and of course in 2020 we had the pandemic. There was no food, the food banks were empty. I had seen a food crisis coming. I stored up about 3 months of inventory, raw materials and finished product. When that hit, when COVID hit, and there was everybody was hoarding, what was 3 months of inventory went in 3 weeks. And then we were working around the clock because we were an essential business and are an essential business, so we can stay open. But the churches can't stay open. The restaurants can't stay open. You know, they said, you guys can't work. But work is essential. And instead of closing everything down, we just should have been like we were, more careful. Hey, we have a temperature monitor at the door. You have a fever, don't come in. Or if you're not feeling good, don't come in. Sanitize, separate as much as we can. And nobody got sick. Because COVID was, now they say, it's the lay down and die disease. If you stop moving, which a lot of us did, we went into, not us, into bunkers. And the lack of movement, we became sick. You lay down, my son here was getting very sick, his oxygen level was going down. A doctor said to him, get up and move. And he was walking around, his lungs were expanding. Mm-hmm. He recovered, not 100%, but he started recovery in 1 day. So you got to keep moving. But the importance as an essential business to move and to build. And we were working around the clock very courageously, I'm saying the people that work here. And I figured, hey, why don't the food banks are empty. People are scared out of their minds. It says 365 times in the Bible, be not afraid. And we were working and said, I got an idea. I'm going to offer our country a couple million pounds of food. And I'm going to do it through the chief executive, Donald J. Trump. So I got messages and I started working that angle. And 2 million turned into 5 million, which we do every year, but not to that extent. And so they said, okay, yeah, you know, he can come down here. That didn't work. Now we go up to the White House. And by the way, are you interested in joining this White House Commission on Hispanic Prosperity? I said, sure. Yeah, anything for our community. And by the way, the Biden administration and Harris fired that commission. So on Hispanic prosperity. So I don't know if they like Hispanics or Hispanic prosperity, but so I go to Washington with the idea of, here's a gift of food from Goya Foods, from our people who are working courageously. And by the way, at that time, it was very difficult to even scrap together 10 cases, no less a couple million cases of product to give away, because we were getting swamped with people coming for food. We need it, Walmart, we need this, every company, we need food. Well, we'll give you whatever we can in equal shares. So to be able to manufacture food that's for giveaway.
So you were going there with the intentions of announcing 3 million pounds that you were going to give away, not really knowing how you were going to do it, but you were going to do it, right?
Well, we got together. I got together with other vendors. It was actually 2 million. Started at 2, it ended up at 5. Mm-hmm. But and we make our own cans. But some of the can manufacturers, carton, the farmers with the food, and I said, hey, I want to do this, and the rice, the people that grow rice for us, and so we went together with this program, and we were able to do it. And again, that year even go to 5 million pounds, little by little, and because we were working. And so we get there, and they asked me to speak. Plus, they had also invited me to be a commissioner, this White House Commission on Hispanic Prosperity. So I'm in the cabinet room, there's all these people, all these media, and I'm just a guy there, hey, we want to help our country. And so I go out to
Had you met President Trump before this?
No.
Okay.
No. And actually, I was with a friend of mine, Eduardo Berastegui, who was sitting next to me, and next to me was, on the other side, was an empty seat, who was for President Trump. And he comes into the room, looks over in our direction, he goes, that's the best looking guy in the world, better looking than Clark Gable. You know, I'm blushing. No, it was Eduardo Berastegui, who is a really good looking guy. Yeah. Not just my opinion. But
he's a movie star. So,
he's a movie star, yeah.
Gotta give him credit.
And so when it came to my turn to speak out in the Rose Garden, you know, I was talking about the gift and the companies that had helped. And I said, oh, and by the way, and this is where the Holy Spirit comes in, we're blessed to have a leader like President Trump, who's also a builder. But that fell like a ton of bricks. The cancel culture erupted, the hate culture, evil erupted. And we were attacked. President Trump was attacked. Mm-hmm. I was on radio and television for several weeks. I wake up and say, there I am again. And, you know, you make plans and God laughs. We got over $100 million in earned media that I didn't ask for. Good or bad, it was earned, it was media. Yeah. And a platform, and I said, well, I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to offer some food. And found myself in the middle of this culture war and a boycott. We were boycotted. People wanted to destroy our company. People wanted to destroy us. But what happened next? People said, hey, this guy is there, this company is there to help this nation, and this is not right what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So a boycott started. People started going out and buying our products. Some people even say, I don't know what this product is, I've never seen it, but I'm going to buy it. and I said, don't give it away. Try it, you'll like it, And so the boycott turned into a boycott, and the people who called for the boycott, AOC, Julian Castro, Lin-Manuel Miranda, a bunch of people, and threatened us, me and my
Pause.
family. Sure.
Did that hurt? Did that hurt seeing other Hispanic leaders call for a boycott on a Hispanic family-owned company? We all know the success that came from the boycott.
Yeah.
Talking about the 24 hours before the conservative and really every American household decided to step up for this family-owned business. Talking about that 24 hours of what was going through your head with so much pressure of did you feel like you did wrong?
No, not at all. In fact, Laura Ingraham asked me if I was going to apologize. I said, hell no. If I were a public company, say, you apologize and then you're fired. So I wasn't going to do either,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to apologize. And people called me for organizations, apologize. I said, no way. But so when that happened, I was fearful, not for myself, for my family, for my children, my grandchildren, which I have 14 now, and 15 on the way. I was fearful for them. I got a lot of backlash from some family members, cousins, etc. And they were fearful. Hey, how's this going to blow back on Goya? Because the Latino community is Democrat. They're left, and it's not necessarily true. And today, the Latino community is swinging more right because the lack of prosperity, the lack of freedom, the border, safety, all those things. So I was not fearful for me in any way, even though we'd gotten threats, and I was more concerned with my family.
Yeah.
But that these elitists, these fake Latinos, like in AOC, in fact, later on, we did so well with the boycott that I jokingly made AOC Employee of the Month for raising our sales 1,000% with using zero brain cells. But I wasn't worried about these elitists because our food goes to the masses.
Okay.
We're not selling caviar and lobster. We're selling rice and beans. I don't know. AOC talked about adobo. I don't know if she even knows what the heck adobo is. Adobo for the Mexican is a moist rub. Adobo, our adobo is a dry powder.
That's true.
How are you going to make adobo? She didn't have a clue what she was talking about because she's not a Latina. She's a fake Latina. And people like Julian Castro, also everybody jumped on the bandwagon because they're the elitists. But it didn't worry me. And we didn't miss a beat. In fact, we gained sales because people who didn't know us became to know us. And the people who really are the hardworking people that we sell to, they don't care if I say blessed or not. Only the elitists, the cancel culture, the people that are guided by evil were able to attack us. And I'm not afraid of evil.
It's almost comical that the left says they stand for minorities and Hispanics and small businesses, and yet here they are telling the community boycott a family-owned Hispanic business that impacts every Hispanic household in America. It's quite comical. But I say that because there are so many Hispanics, as you emphasize, that are trending to the right, but there are millions more, I believe, that wish they could come out and say they're conservative, but are afraid of the backlash that they might face in their communities, in their families. What would you say to someone that feels, I have to speak out, but I'm afraid of the backlash? Because not only did you double down, as you said when they asked if you would apologize, you said, hell no, I won't apologize. Right. Do you feel like everyone's going to have their Babu Nanwe moment? Do you feel like you need to have a Babu Nanwe moment where you're going to say, this is what I stand for? Have the stakes risen that high that we have to be vocal?
Well, what reared its ugly head back then was hatred. You know, as you see it today against the Jewish community. And that's what Hitler used in Germany, was a community to hate the Jewish population. Now we're seeing more of the same. But if you wear a red hat, and now he's got many multicolored hats out, so you can't be, but you wear a red hat, it's a flag. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be the best person in the world, but you have a red hat on and there's hatred. And, you know, Jose Marti, the Cuban poet, said, there's people in this world born to love and build, others to hate and destroy. We're learning to hate each other. You know, I can disagree with Biden and Harris. I can think they're not good people, but we're not called to hate. We're called to love, because we get value from God. Unfortunately, today we're getting value from letters, from flags. There's even a MAP flag, minor attracted person. When we don't feel, when we don't get our value from God, we can't love ourselves, we can't love God, and we can't love our neighbor. And that's what's happening. We're not loving our neighbor, we're hating our neighbor. And the fact that Donald Trump takes it on the chin every day because he loved his country, and people don't like that, he's hated. So if you were to wear a red hat, a MAGA hat, you could be dead. And so that's why people, I'm not for Trump, you know, but then in the vote, when the curtain closes,
They're voting for Trump.
Donald J. Trump. Because we know that we were prosperous. We know that we were safe.
Yeah.
And we know that there was freedom. And unfortunately, freedom, the lack of freedom is only known once it's lost. And we're at the verge of that. Look at what they're doing. If you pray at a abortion clinic, you can be arrested, or any of these things. However, criminals are let loose on the streets to murder, to steal, and it's acceptable. We have the George Soros prosecutors. We have, hey, Kamala Harris was a prosecutor, and this whole, they're creating anarchy, they're creating chaos in this world. We're going to lose our freedom, and it's going to be too late. And the United States is the last bastion of freedom and protection for the most vulnerable.
Exactly. Where do we go if we lose America? Can't go to Spain, Bob. Not anymore. But listen, you and I both have had the great privilege and honor of being around President Trump, and it is true what people say, that he electrifies the room when he walks in. But walk me through July of 2020 in the cabinet room. You see that empty chair next to you. You're told President Trump's going to sit next to you. What is all going through your mind there? Walk me through that relationship and friendship that you have with President Trump, because you are very close to him and he values you and your advice and your wisdom, and you're out on the campaign trail with him. A lot of people only see what they can from President Trump through what the media shows. But who is the Trump that you know?
Well, you know, I didn't know him before that, and again, I wanted to reach out to him. I wanted him to get closer to the Latino community. I didn't really feel the administration was that close. We worked with people inside like Jenny Korn and other people. And that's why I volunteered with the Commission on Hispanic Prosperity. And I wanted to give food to the country through the chief executive. But he's just the nicest guy. And let me tell you, you know, later on, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but later on, when I met up with Eduardo Verástegui, we did the Sound of Freedom, and I had the privilege of being involved in that, and aware of the child trafficking and trafficking in this country, the biggest industries in the world. And there's a group of people, survivors, women who had been trafficked. And they were at the White House for a law that was being passed to alert parents and you know, to protect these people. And there was a woman there who led this group down there, who really wasn't too, didn't like the president. But these group went into the Oval Office and, you know, a little bit, you know, cautious. They came out crying. They said, you know, he looked at each one of us. He talked to us. He's not a creep. He's a great guy. They felt in him the love and the caring, and it's not the image that's portrayed anywhere else. I feel the same thing. He's done so many acts of kindness to people that he never tells about. You know, don't let the left hand know what your right hand is doing. And he's just, if you're, you know, you attack him, he might be a counterpuncher. But I've only found that for him to take the sacrifice every day of taking the hit and risking his life. He's like Saint Michael. He's like a warrior that is risking his life for us. I said, what man, what person, what woman risks their lives for their country? They're called freedom fighters. They're courageous people. There's no greater love than laying down your life for your brother or sister, and that's Donald Trump. And you got to love that. I love that. I love him. The people who hate him don't, you know, don't want what's best for this country. You know, it's funny. I lived in Miami, and during Elian, from 1999 to 2004, and they came in with guns and they took Elian away. And the Cuban community protested. They set up a day to protest. They expected the city to be torn down and burned. Not a peep. And why was that? Because the Cuban community, in a great way, built Miami. If I build a house tomorrow, because I'm upset about something, I'm not going to go and burn down my house.
Wow.
And that's what happened to the Cuban community. But who is burning down our cities? Who's burning down the Portlands, the Seattles? You know, in Texas, we have the big cities with all these handouts. People who have no skin in the game. They've not worked. They don't earn anything. That the people are burning down this country. It's evil. And it's people who have even been sent to this country by Venezuela, by El Salvador and other countries. 180 countries around the world. Enter through the north, the south, and by the air. There's a parole system that we're bringing. You know, the United States is not just encouraging, or they're importing, they're bringing people into this country like commodities to be abused, or like, you know, angry criminals to create anarchy. Mm-hmm. And the parole system is Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, and Nicaragua. And so we're just opening up our doors, come into this country to destroy us. What we work for, and again, I've worked my whole life, the average Social Security check is $1,200, but somebody can come into this country not working a day and get over $3,800 in benefits for doing nothing. And so we have to work more than half a day or 3/4 of a day so that someone else doesn't have to work. And in the meantime, moving away from God, I believe, toward communism, which is the absence of God and the absence of freedom and the destruction of this nation. And if we go,
So do you believe that the trend of Hispanics moving more to the right, is that because of President Trump? Or is that because Hispanics are seeing the liberal policies that were exclusive to Latin America are now alive and present here today, and President Trump just stands as the fighter against those issues, or is it both?
We're feeling the lack of prosperity. People came here for prosperity. We had prosperity under Trump. It's been taken away from us. We had safety under Trump. We had a secure border. You know, 320,000 children missing that have been sold, basically. Mm-hmm. Millions of people coming into this country, a few to do good and many to do bad. with Donald Trump, we'll have a secure border. We had a secure border, we'll bring it back. We had prosperity, we'll bring it back. We had standing around the world. We had peace. And so as a Latino community, who is the #1 victim, exploited victim of trafficking, and mainly women, is fed up with an economy where we have to work harder to make less, to feed other people. We're not safe. Our communities aren't safe. The border is wide open. And so once we lose that, once we lose the freedom, there's no going back. There's no going back. And the two things that drive all this, money and power, money and control. And Donald Trump stands as he says, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way. And he stands in the way courageously to protect us. I think recently said if he loses, he's not going to run again. But that can't happen. We need him. Maybe saying that, so hey, get out and vote, because if not, I've done all I can. And God help us if this administration, who, you know, their economic policies is nonsense. Bernie Sanders said that Kamala Harris is saying things just to get elected. Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank said, hey, this idea of unrealized capital gains, in other words, if you have a house or a property that's worth $100,000, but it jumps to $200,000, you have to pay a $100,000 gain unless you, even though you haven't sold it. So the only way to get the money for those taxes, which they want to just collect taxes to stay in power, the only way to get that is to sell it. So I would say, no. He called the administration, the Harris administration, and said, are you serious? This is going to destroy our economy. He said, don't worry, be happy. There's no way Congress would pass this. They're just basically saying that to get the people who want to, the administration want to just collect from all these greedy rich people. But who are the rich people? The rich people is the middle class that's being destroyed.
Yeah.
Where do you get money or taxes from? It's not the government's money, it's our hardworking money.
I get that. Bob, what do you say? I got an Instagram message the other day from someone, and I think that maybe you could, a better response because you have children. And the message said something along the lines of, Abraham, I understand President Trump's policies, I get it, but something that, and I think it's about, our community has a lot of moral conviction, but the message said, I just don't know how I would live with myself by my kids knowing that I voted for someone who speaks that way and talks about people that way. What do you say to those people that understand the importance of voting for President Trump, but still maybe have that issue that we know isn't an issue for us because we know the man, so we know his true heart. But what do you say to someone that doesn't have that personal friendship with President Trump like you do?
Well, you know, President Trump is a very funny guy. You know, he says things tongue-in-cheek a lot of times that people take seriously. But, you know, when he ran in 2016, he had 16 talking heads and the other side also blah, 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 blah. When he would speak, people would stop. And President Trump is President Trump because he tells things the way they are. Sometimes people don't want to hear it, sometimes in jest. A lot of times in jest, because he's a funny guy. But, you know, I'd rather hear, you know, there's a saying, one of the guys that used to work with us, credit manager, said, believe none of what you read and half of what you see. So I'd rather have a guy that says something that may be a little bit controversial, but it's true, than a guy that's talking so much BS, like a Kamala Harris, that they're saying stuff just to get elected. It's not true, and we're being taken for a ride, and our lives are at stake, our country's at stake. I'd rather have somebody that's honest, even though we might think, oh my God. So we've become so squeamish about words. Oh my God, he said this, she said that. But wait a minute. Let's take a child who's sold for penny on the dollars. Let's exploit them and forget about the 39 weeks in the womb, which a lot of people like to talk about with abortion. Once you're born, we're not valuing life. Take a child that is being sodomized as an infant or sold multiple times a day in sex or slavery, or their body parts are taken, or their blood, which is a real thing. We're not shocked about that, but we're shocked about, oh my God, I'm so offended from this word or that word. You asked me, and if our country was going to go at war and Kamala Harris would go to speak to Putin, where she did speak to Zelensky, and 3 days later Russia was in Ukraine. I don't want to put the lives of my life, the lives of my children on line with somebody so weak, so out of tune with reality, so ignorant to that, than a person who knows the art of the deal, knows it's tough, that had peace for all these years, millions of lives saved for lack of not being in war, a prosperous country, versus a couple maybe off-color words or whatever. I'll take that. I'm not so offended by that. I'm offended by children being abused, exploited, Latinos being, that's what I'm offended by. And Kamala Harris has presided over, as a woman, the largest enterprise in the world of trafficking and drugs. And we're not offended by that. But we're offended by Donald Trump. Oh, he said this and he hurt my feelings. Get
serious. Yeah, we need to get serious. This election
so,
cycle.
We have a woman, and not because she's a woman, not because Biden's a man, Kamala's a woman, but they both presided over basically bringing people to this country for sale. Tara Lee Rhoda said it last year. She testified that the U.S. is a middleman, meaning we were complicit, meaning we were profiting off of this. NGOs have gone, the government gives millions to NGOs to go, actually they've gone to countries to bring people in so they can vote and they can be exploited. This is evil. We're in a spiritual war, and that's what I write about in my book. We're in a spiritual war of good versus evil. This is evil. A bad word, a nasty word once in a while. Hey, given the
he's from New York.
Go for it.
And you've lived in New York, so you kind of get it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Jersey, guy.
So, you're Jersey. Yeah. So, Bob, you in the book you also write about some of the experiences you had with the Obamas, and just for my curiosity, what's the biggest difference between the Obamas and President Trump? I'm sure there's a lot, but
well, I was called on Hispanic Heritage to introduce President Obama. I worked with through their cook and then nutritional guy guru Sam Cass to bring this My Plate, Mi Plato to the Hispanic community, which is more obese and diabetic. And very nice, very cordial, President Obama. But one thing I've noticed in his treatment and in his speeches, he's very condescending to us, as if, we don't matter. And so when you speak to President Trump...
In what way? What do you mean by that?
Like telling us, when he left office, he was telling us, basically, this is the way we must live.
Yeah.
Where President Trump has, is trying to protect us. He's taking it on the chin. People say, I don't know if it's true or not, but, I don't believe Joe Biden was always in control of this country or Kamala Harris. It's a bigger new world order, because you're seeing, you mentioned Spain before. At 12 years old in Spain, you can transition to another gender without parental interference. It's happening in France, it's happening in Germany, it's happening around the world. So this is not just about the United States. Biden, or Harris. This is about a new world order that President Trump is fighting. And if President Trump is in there, why do other nations also fear him?
Yeah.
Because he's draining the swamp not only here, he's going to drain it there. And we need to unite, I think, this country with other countries in this hemisphere and around the world. The people who care about God, freedom, and think like us need to unite and let the evil ones and do their thing. But we want, and God, the Holy Spirit, has intervened in this. And who knows what times these are. We all have our own end times. But the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, God, is involved in this. And with President Trump, he's put the hand on President Trump and protecting him. Because this is a spiritual war, good and evil. And not that we haven't had that in history, but like Dr. Ben Carson, who wrote the foreword to this book, a good friend, he said there's more slaves in the world today than in the history of the world. And if you like being slaves, then the Harris administration is vote for them. If you like your freedom, don't vote for them. Vote for Donald J. Trump.
That's incredible. As I said, Bob, we're about 40 days from this recording till Election Day. Being the CEO of a multinational company, thousands of employees, you've traveled the world. In the book, we hear about your experience in the middle of the Ukraine war, what you did there, and I don't want to spoil too much because it's an incredible story. What have you, and then now you write this book at such a moment in time where Hispanics get to read, maybe go and cast their ballot. What have you seen that has made you be so vocal pro-Trump and write a book about why you're supporting President Trump this election cycle?
Well, the Ukraine thing was incredible, and I try since I've gotten this platform to talk about God, and so this woman was watching in San Antonio, and she contacted us, Mike Teixeira Wattsman, who's in the room with us now, and said, "Hey, would Mr. Unanue like a rosary?" So she sends us. He says, "Sure." She sends us a rosary. One rosary turned into 1,000, 15,000. We've received over 100,000 rosaries. Then she says, "Come on out to," and I got interviewed on Fox. She said, "Come on out to San Antonio." We went out there. She had about 12,000 rosaries at the time. She says, "Would you mind taking these rosaries to the people of Ukraine?" Sure, why not? And we brought them back here. We had 12, 13, 14, 15,000. We packed them up. We had a group led with Maite and myself, and we headed off to Poland, to the Ukraine border. And the Knights of Columbus helped us. There was a note from these priests, we need rosaries. And again, there was also an interview with Shannon Hasse was her name, a saint, in my opinion, that the world needed to pray more. And so, I mean, we had ex-SEAL team Green Berets deliver rosaries into Lviv. Food also. We were sending food from our European operation into there. And we met people over there that were, this one girl, Nelia, and her husband, Andrei. She was with her 6-year-old son, Andrei. We said, where's your husband? He goes, no, anyone over 18 has to stay and fight. And so I said, what did you tell each other when you left each other? And we helped her out, and she said, well, my husband said, love and protect our son, and I will protect and defend our country. And, we were just so blown away by that families were separated, children, women in exile. Also, there's a lot of surrogate mothers in Ukraine too. There were a lot of children left abandoned. And Tim Ballard, who's, Operation Underground Railroad and The Sound of Freedom, Tim Ballard, was in Ukraine saving kids. These are real life things, that we don't see in our country, that there's this war, people getting killed and families being split apart. Eventually, Nelia made her way to Canada. We're in touch with her, and her husband made it over, and they're doing very well. It's a blessing. But that situation, that reality, made me realize that when Donald Trump was in office, none of that would have happened. The only reason I believe Putin went into Ukraine was our weakness in pulling out of Afghanistan, where we left women and children behind, our friends, our allies. The military went out first. Usually, and talking to these Green Berets, they said, when we leave a country, we're the last ones out with our guns pointing out and backing into a Huey helicopter or another helicopter. That, we abandoned our friends and allies. We withdrew in a way that was terrible for a photo op for President Biden. And it made us look so weak that Putin went into Ukraine. And look at the millions of lives that have been lost with these wars, with the Palestine, the Jews, the innocent Palestinians, the evil Hamas, which is wreaking, the Houthis blocking the Strait of Aden and the Suez Canal, and creating all this mess and inflation around the world, all this chaos. And that's the sign of a weak president that's just concerned, that's corrupt. It's corrupt. And heading, this administration they're the owners of this trafficking and drugs, which is the greatest industry in the world. They've not only allowed it, they've, I think, promoted it. I may not be able to say that if we lose this election. I might not be able to say it now. So if I'm arrested in a couple of weeks, so be it. But
hopefully it wasn't due to this video, so we'll maybe have to block that out.
Well, it's testimony from Tara Lee wrote us that the U.S. is complicit in this, and there's too much money to be made on this. But how can the Latino, the woman, the child, and the young man are the most? We're all exploited, and if we want to be used and abused again, we got to vote this administration in again, and then we're done.
That's something I admire so much about you, Bob, is that when you see a problem, you just don't complain about it. You actually roll up your sleeves, you get something done with it. Human trafficking is something that you're so deeply passionate about, and ending the horrific actions, that you launched Goya Cares, and you became an executive producer of the #1 movie worldwide, Sound of Freedom. And I think that's incredible. So, CEO of a giant company, and you were able to manage COVID and a boycott. You became an executive producer, now a best-selling author. What's the secret? What is the secret to do that? You went into the White House because you wanted President Trump to be more focused about Hispanics, about Hispanic issues, and we came out with the Hispanic Prosperity Commission, which the fact that no one's highlighting that Kamala and Joe dismantled the Hispanic Prosperity Commission is mind-blowing. It seems like everything that you do turns to gold, Bob. Everything's so successful. What is Bob's secret?
Well, my dad, like I said, told us years ago, your goal in life is salvation. And you have to have a purpose-driven life. Vampiro, the vampire in Sound of Freedom, he would buy children to save them, to let them free. At one point, he has sex, not realizing it's an underage kid, and he puts a gun to his head. But then he receives a message from God, And it's because it was asked by Jim Caviezel, by Tim Ballard, why are you doing this? Why are you buying children's dinner and free? He goes, when God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate. And so, you know, having a father who died 48 years ago, but left in us the purpose of our lives being salvation, even if you're in a business, whatever thing that you do, at the end of the day, the goal is salvation. And so, not being that as young as you, but even still, it takes a lot of courage for young people to stand up for each other, and that's one of the things we do with Goya Cares. But, you know, if you don't answer the call, then, you know, then I have to account for myself at the end of the day and say, hey, you know, Bob, I asked you to stand up, and you didn't stand up, and so you take that door. I don't want to take that door.
I think through your story, people can see that I know you so well, and I know that you're such a man of faith. But if I didn't know you, I would say, how is Bob that courageous to be able to look cancel culture in the face and say, hell no, I won't apologize, to go to toe-to-toe with Walt Disney Productions, which you write about, and buying back a movie that has truly, it's a movie that's going to shape the culture of our lifetime. Standing by someone like President Trump and now serving as an advisor. It's incredible. And in this book, you write about that, and you put the success of yourself in one simple sentence that I love, which is not a spoiler, but I think it's so important to highlight. You say, my family is successful not because of the government or any virtue signaling politician, but because of God, family, and work. So, to wrap up, Bob, what do you say to the millions of Hispanics in this country who are going to cast a ballot in November? Some of them are actually voting now for the future of this country.
Well, we are, as Latinos, Hispanics, Mexican, as citizens of this country, we are the future of this country. As Latinos, we're the biggest minority, we'll be the biggest group, and we have all these political views. But the things that unite us the most are the values of God, family, and work. But those, you know, I have a good friend, your friend also, Myra Flores, who's running for Congress in McAllen area. And by the way, it's not just the presidency, it's the Congress, it's the Senate. And her dad is a Democrat, and she's running as a Republican. Her dad said, Myra, you're a Democrat. No, Dad, I'm a Republican. No, Myra, you're a Democrat. She said, no. So fast forward, her dad goes to Myra and says, Myra, I'm a Republican. She says, why is that, Dad? He said, my party abandoned me. My party, and it's not the Democrats or Republicans, we're good, they're good people. Mm-hmm. The people in this administration, the not really good people, in my opinion, who are there to abuse us, they've abandoned our community. They don't love us. They don't care for us. They just want to exploit us, because we are the #1 exploited and abused communities through lack of prosperity, lack of freedom, and exploitation and trafficking. Yeah. So,
well, not only in every sense of the way. I think every 4 years the Democrats come to our community and promise all these amazing things, and we fall short. And President Trump, what he did in 4 years for the Hispanics, is more than what the Democrats have done in the past 2 decades that they've held power.
Let me ask you this: if you know we're almost 70 million Latinos, if they're so in tune and supportive of the Latino community, why do they need to bring in 10 million people to vote their way and hand out candy? That means they're not confident with the Latino who lives here and works here and thrives in this country until now. And so they're not lovers of Hispanics or prosperity. So they need to, in my opinion, cheat, bring in people to have them vote right away. That's the root cause. Kamala Harris was charged with what is the root cause? Money and power, exploitation and control, staying in power. How do you do that? We need to let's bring in 10, 11 million more people into this country and hand out a little bit of candy. Let's hand out $150,000 interest-free loans, which they floated in California. They probably won't do, but give them phones to track people, to message them, vote this way, vote this way. Free phones. That started with Obama, the free Obama phones. But we are being exploited. If we want to be used and abused, vote for these people. If you don't, you got to vote for Donald Trump, vote for Myra Flores, and vote for all the good.
Are we going to see
people.
Bob Unanue on a ticket soon? Seems
I
like you're getting brushed up on the policies, Bob. Are we going to see a run sometime soon?
I care about this country. I have a good day job. I'm not gonna. I don't think I'll take a cut in salary, but I do love this country. If called, for in whatever capacity, I consider it just because we need to serve our country. Beyond that, I have no aspirations. Besides being an instrument being called by God, and if called by the one man I consider is leading us in that direction, President Trump, I would answer his call.
That's great. Bless Donald J. Trump and the spiritual war. What do you hope people get out of this book, Bob?
That we are in a spiritual war. It's the messaging. It's not selling of books. It's that we are blessed as a country. We are valued. One of the things Goya Cares does is we have this content called Pause. Stop, and someone you don't know, especially the young people, have the courage to stand up. Don't bully this person. Put down the selfie. Care about the other person. And you can save a life. Imagine the power of somebody, a young person saying, saving a life by saying, leave that kid alone. You matter. You're valued. That's one of the programs we have called Pause. So the only thing that can defeat hatred is love. We have to love our neighbor. We have to get value from God. And not from a letter, not from a flag, not from anything else. Once we have value from God, we can love ourselves and we can love our neighbor. Because if we don't love ourselves, how are we going to love our neighbors? Mm-hmm. We got to feel the value from God and love ourselves and love each other. And then not hate. Let's not hate anybody. Not President Trump, not VP Harris, not anybody. Let's love each other and bring this country closer to God. That's the message there.
That's great, Bob. And we met, again, the White House Rose Garden in the commemoration of the Hispanic Prosperity Commission. But also Ronald Reagan stepped onto the White House Rose Garden to commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month. And when he commemorated Hispanic Heritage Month, to which we're celebrating today, he said, Hispanics in America build things of great value. They lift up our businesses and family in America. And I believe that he was talking about you, because you do that each and every day. So thank you for being a great example to our community, Bob.
You, Abraham, you are the young voice, your courage, your spirit. We need you. I'm at the other end. You're beginning, and your mom also, Betty, who's very young gal, mistook her for your younger sister, but your Bienvenido organization is one of the few voices in the community, which is the largest minority in this country, and yet we don't have a voice, and you're giving it that voice. God bless you for that. And we need to bring more Latinos together under your leadership and your voice to join together under those values, God, family, and work. And I have hope. We're going to bring this country closer to God. We're going to bring prosperity back, strength, and safety. And we're going to do it together, and we're going to do it with DJT.
I
Donald J.
believe
Trump.
that. I believe that. So now, seriously, the last question now, and this is probably my most asked question I ask my friends that I should ask you, and it seems to be such a dividing question for a lot of people. Bob Unanue, CEO of Goya, what is your favorite Goya product?
You know, well, we say as Latinos, I didn't say it. Mr. Augusto Ledesma said, in Rest in Peace, said at the Smithsonian, he said, as Latinos, we're united by language, we're separated by the bean. And so it's cargamanto bean in Colombia, it's a frijol de seda in Central America, it's a mayacoba, it's all the beans.
Yeah.
But living in Puerto Rico 10 years and having 4 of my 6 children born there, one of the favorite beans in Puerto Rico is habichuela rosada, the pink bean.
Okay.
And so that's my favorite. And rice and beans, you know, you combine beans with rice, you get a complete protein. It has protein, fiber, antioxidants, phytonutrients. But it just, more than anything, it tastes great. And give me un plato de arroz con habichuela rosada any day, and I'm good. I'm good to go.
That's incredible. Bob Unanue, making America healthy again through Goya beans. So, Bob, thank you. Appreciate you.
Love you, Abraham.